Sir Walter Elliot ran an elegantly manicured fingertip over the faded gold lettering on the cover of his most treasured possession, Burke's Peerage and Baronetage, 106th edition, Volume 1. Published shortly after his wife's death, it had become a trusty anchor in the storm-tossed sea of his life, a symbol of hope in a darkening world. A world where, increasingly, people worshipped the false god of celebrity in preference to the true and solid worth of an hereditary title. He turned to the page where the red satin bookmark had taken up permanent residence and read the words he knew by heart. Sir Walter William Elliot, 8th Baronet of Kellynch, Somerset. Born 5th of April 1953, married 1975 Princess Irina Grigorievna Petrova, died 1998, daughter of Prince Grigory Ivanovich Petrov of Paris, and has Elizabeth Irina, born 1978, Anna Elena, born 1982, Mona Katarina, born 1984. He let out a little sigh. The absence of a son to inherit his title had always been a severe blow, but at least he could be proud of 2 of his daughters. Lisa, made in his own image, tall, golden-haired and utterly beautiful, the only one who understood him, and Mona, incomprehensibly freckled, something of a disappointment until she made a respectable marriage to Charles Musgrove and produced 2 fine boys. The Musgrove family might not possess a title, but they had a 900-acre farm, a decent-sized manor house, and generally clear complexions. Which left Anna. Small and dark and studious like her mother, but, unlike her mother, unable, or unwilling, to find a suitable man. And since she'd started living with that Smith woman and her layabout of a husband, showing a rebellious streak that would no doubt manifest itself at the meeting today. He shook his head sadly. It had all started so well. The degree at Oxford and trips to Russia that he'd magnanimously funded. Out of the trust fund that Irina had purposely set up, but even so, he'd never understood why Irina sold the Petrov diamonds and invested the proceeds for the girls' education, unless it was to favour Anna, who was always going to need more than her fair share. The PhD that he'd tolerated so long as Anna earned enough to support herself. But then, instead of doing something useful with her life and finding a desirable husband, as Irina had, she'd become a lecturer at the Bath and Western University. Oxford itself would have been preferable, and further away.
My middle daughter's an Oxford professor, you know. Always was a bit eccentric.
Thank God Irina couldn't see her favourite daughter now, mixing with the working class and, on the rare occasions that she visited Kellynch, dressing as scruffily as one of her students. A car sweeping past the library window roused him from his reverie. His nearest neighbour, Minty, or Lady Russell, to use her formal name, in her vintage rolls. Like him, she was a stickler for appearances. In fact, they had so much in common that he found himself wondering why they'd never married. He could see several advantages in such an alliance. As the widow of a mere knight, she'd always been more than willing to look up to a baronet. She dressed with a certain style and, as she often reminded him, on a much smaller budget than Lisa. And, from the far side of a dimly lit room, she could easily pass for 45. Then he remembered the downside. As his wife's closest friend and confidant, she had an unfortunate habit of imagining what dear Irina would have thought about everything. Her hair was as grey as dust, and she refused to contemplate any sort of flattering rinse. What he called the necessities of life she termed pure extravagance, and last, but by no means least, she was too old to bear him a son. A scenario that had suddenly become a distinct possibility, thanks to Walter, darling.